Good morning. This is Theological Thursday. I'm John Roy, and this is
Ashley Twitchell. We're glad to be chatting with you today.
And we thought we'd give a little bit of our biography this morning. Not a lot of it, just a little bit, just to show you that we're different. So I guess the way we can do this is I'll say one thing, and then you say the corresponding thing from your truth, okay?
All right.
I grew up Baptist.
I grew up Lutheran.
I'm a man.
I'm a woman.
I've been a father.
I have been a mother.
Let's see. I am 50. I just turned 56.
I am 19.
You're 19. Okay. I was going to say, you don't have to say how old you are, but it's apparent that you're much younger than me. So we come from two different periods of time. We have obviously different in genders, different in our training, but we both love and serve God and love and serve God's family. And we're here to sort of go back and forth on some concerns to us and some theological issues that we hope are concerning to you. But first, I've asked Ashley if she would to tell a Easter story. Since we're still just in the shadow of Easter, what are your favorite Easter memories?
Well, I think we want to say too, though, real quick, this Zoom Theological Thursday is a new thing for us.
Yeah.
We're trying to be a little more practiced in our social distancing. So this is the first time that we have done this remotely, and hopefully you can follow along and it doesn't feel like it's going back and forth too much. So the Easter story that I thought of, I am a visual person. I think and remember things in pictures. And the picture that I remember is of me and my brother, probably when we're maybe 4 and 6, young children, and we're sitting in our Easter clothes with our Easter baskets full of eggs, and both of us are sitting in the bucket of a bulldozer. They were doing construction on the playground at our church, and they had still done the Easter egg hunt, and we were running all over the playground, and then at the end, we got to sit in the front of the end loader. And so there's this picture of us all dressed up sitting in the bucket of a bulldozer.
Now, is that in your home somewhere, or is that just like in a scrapbook?
Just in a scrapbook. I went through some pictures recently looking for one for a sermon, and I saw that one of us when we were little.
That's a nice memory.
Good. Makes me remember, too, the loss, I guess, of not being able to do that. Most churches have an Easter egg hunt and get to share that with their families as a congregation, and we aren't able to do that this year. So kind of reflect on how important that is as a memory to me, and how exciting that'll be to be able to do that when we're together again.
We did miss that this year for sure.
What about you? What's an Easter memory?
Can you hear this guy blowing his leaves behind me here? Can you hear that?
I can vaguely hear that.
Okay. All right, sorry.
He didn't know it's Theological Thursday.
He did not know that. My memory is I'm 26, 27, 28. I'm a new pastor. I'm in a small town, and we're having a joint sunrise service. It's me and the Baptist Church, the Methodist Church, the Pentecostal Holiness Church. We're all meeting in the park across the street from the Methodist and Baptist Church. And after we have this time of sunrise service, we go into the Methodist Church and have coffee and donuts and so forth. Well, we rotate around who's the speaker. Well, this particular year, the speaker was going to be Willie Armstrong, who was the pastor of the United Methodist Church. And Willie had a great illustration that he was going to use. But before I get to that illustration, I have to say that, March and April is when Easter is, and it fluctuates whether it goes deep into April or sort of mid-March. And also because of where we're located, you could have some cooler weather. Like this past Sunday, we had in the 60s. And we've had Easter where we've had it in the mid-70s, though. But this was a particular Easter that was sort of a mid-March Easter. And so we actually had really low temperatures. The night before had been in the 20s, and we couldn't have been more than in the mid-30s when we're having this sunrise service. So we're having the sunrise service, and Willie has this illustration that he's going to use. And he has been talking about new life and new life and new life. And he wants to let this butterfly come out of this jar. He's got this jar. So he pulls this jar out and he takes the lid off of it and he's going to let this butterfly fly. But it's so cold that the butterfly won't leave the jar. And so he turns the jar over and starts trying to get the butterfly to come out, and he can't get the butterfly to come out. And so, of course, we're all laughing now. And he really is working hard trying to get it out, and it never would come out, that poor butterfly. Willie tried hard.
Well, real live illustrations.
That's right. Never work with children or animals.
You never know what you're going to get.
You never know what you're going to get. That's absolutely the truth.
Well, I have a scripture reading for us today that is from Colossians, and I'm going to be reading the New Living Translation. This is from the 3rd chapter.
Now, just so that everybody knows, I'm going to interrupt you a few times, and it's not like I'm just stepping on you. We've talked a little bit about this. I'm not the type of person who would just interrupt you when you're reading, but I just didn't want them to think of me as rude.
We describe ourselves like brother and sister, so it's okay to interrupt each other because brothers and sisters interrupt each other a lot.
They do. They do. All right, go ahead.
Okay. This is from Colossians 3. Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth.
Now,
when you died to this life.
Hold on. Do you think that when he says heaven and earth, I don't know that he's really thinking about what we consider these destinations of heaven and earth. I think he more has in mind that there are qualities that are eternal. And that's what heaven is to him. It's an eternal place. And so these eternal qualities like love and peace and friendship, think on those things, not on the things that are like earth or the things that are temporary, like, just money and things like that, but turn your attention towards these more eternal things. I
think the things of heaven, we think it's hard to really know what heaven is like. We say that all the time. We don't really know what that is going to be like, but I think that we can start to wrap our minds around the ways and the things that we would hope it would be. And so that's the stuff that you hope that you hold on to and that you're focusing your attention on. Certainly we can understand that the things of the earth aren't going to give us a whole lot of comfort all the time. So going on, verse 3, for you died to this life, and your real life is hidden with Christ in God. And when Christ, who is your life, is revealed to the whole world, you will share in all his glory. So put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, and evil desires. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater.
Now stop it. First of all, I love the word lurking. We don't just use the word much anymore. Lurking. I like that New Living Translation where they throw out the word lurking. But, greedy, we're living through some really different days. And I think we define greed a little bit different. Or maybe we just look at it and we don't define it differently. We just see it in new ways. I mean, I just got back from the grocery store. Do you know how much toilet paper I found? Zero. You know how many Clorox wipes I found? Zero. And, there are people, obviously now there's limits to all of that you can purchase. But at the very beginning, people would just run in and buy everything. They'd buy all the toilet paper. And there's videos of people doing that shamelessly. And that's a form of greed. And when you find out that you had senators who knew about this virus months ago and that it may bring some real harm to the stock market and they got their money out and our small business owners couldn't do that and you and I couldn't do that, that's another form of greed. And God's watching that. It's not just the list of impurity and lust and evil desires. Don't be greedy. How much clearer can it be than that?
Later in a few verses, it goes on and says, verse 8, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but now is the time to get rid of anger and rage, malicious behavior, slander, dirty language. I think of those kinds of things. That's the lurking. The going back to that word, you can kind of feel that undercurrent. That when those kinds of things are stirring the pot underneath things, it may not be what you see, but it's behind the scenes. And to be honest, though, some of those things are our stress response. You know, like some of those behaviors come out in anxious times, and they happen when we're stressed out. So I think it's kind of this constant tension of, we know those things are there, we know those are behaviors and realities, but there's another option.
I think that's a good point, because even myself, I mean, I think that we can all fall into these things. You know, I can point the finger at greedy people on this matter, but all of this other stuff is lingering underneath me as well. That I'm outraged, malicious behavior, slander, all of that. You're right, it's lurking, and when we're stressed, it does have a tendency to bubble out.
So the scripture goes on in verse 9. Don't lie to each other, for you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all its wicked deeds. Put on your new nature.
I'm sorry.
Good.
When I hear the word lie, don't lie to each other. You know, lying is mentioned a great many times in the Bible. And the power of telling the truth is that we know exactly where we stand with people. You know, when people lie, they're trying to deceive us. Has it ever crossed your mind that there are 3 professions that do not call the people they work with customers? A doctor calls their people that they work with patients. A lawyer calls the people they work with clients. A pastor calls the people that she or he works with parishioners. You know, we expect when we go to the car dealership to have somebody who will stretch the truth. I mean, they're trying to sell us something. You say the words, somebody's trying to sell us something, that's a euphemism for they're lying to us, right? But we expect the truth from the doctor, from the pastor. And that's why we don't use the word customer as the person we work with, because we're absolutely bound to tell them the truth. I mean, you cannot live well if those professions lie to you.
Yeah, I think about the ways that we lie to ourselves. I mean, clearly we know that the relationships that we have, that there's going to be lies there, but I think we do a lot of times, we lie to ourselves about not looking inward sometimes, not looking at what we've done.
Well, tell me more about that. In what ways do we lie to ourselves?
Right now, I feel it in lying about being in control. I mean, I tell myself daily that I've got this and I can handle this, and that's the last piece of truth. You know, when there's small children involved, and when you don't have a schedule, and when you don't have some of the normal things that you do, that really is an out of control feeling, and that's okay. I think that's the one thing that we're having to learn right now, is to not put up the front that things are okay. That it's okay to say that these are hard times, and that we don't know what to do, and that we're out of control. And that's not every moment, every day isn't full of the unknown, but there are a lot of parts of it that right now there's that lurking undercurrent.
Well, that's true. And, you know, I think we all are guilty of lying to ourselves to some degree, and we have to check that. Because the worst person in the world to lie to is yourself. You know, in the simplest way, you know, probably the easiest illustration is to look in the mirror every day and see exactly who you are, and then tell yourself, you know, I don't look as bad as it appears. You know, I think a lot of us took a picture of ourselves at 20 and 21, and we all, no matter what we see in the mirror, we think that's exactly who we are, you know, but we're lying to ourselves. And we'd be better telling ourselves the truth about a variety of things.
All right, well, let's keep going. Verse 10, says, put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. In this new life, it doesn't matter if you are a Jew or Gentile, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbaric, uncivilized, slave or free. Christ is all that matters, and He lives in all of us.
Amen. You know, Paul has these dichotomies that he speaks of from time to time. I've never seen these as exhausting lists that they're supposed to be everything that he's considered. I mean, I always, when I read this, I think to myself, male or female, or employed or unemployed, insured, uninsured, Lutheran, Baptist. You know, that it doesn't really, these differences that we create, these divisions that we have are nothing. They're like a ditch that God can jump over. So they mean absolutely nothing, because the last line is perfect. And He lives in all of us. I think that we don't emphasize that enough. It's all of us. Not some of us, as some people would like to convince us of, but really all of us.
Well, and that goes for neighbors, but it also gets back to what we were talking about, is seeing Christ in ourselves. You know, sometimes it's easier to see Christ in your neighbor than it is to see Christ, see Christ in your own family, or see Christ in yourself, and to recognize the goodness and the grace and the love.
Mm-hmm. And you know, when y'all, I speak of y'all, when Lutherans or that high church tradition, y'all have a blessing at the end, or you know, you've read scripture and you say, "The Lord be with you,"
and y'all also with you,
and also with you. It's like an acknowledgement that, you know, I know exactly who you are. You're not my dentist, and you're not my plumber, and you're not my school teacher. You are you've got the living God living in you.
Mm-hmm.
That should help us treat them better.
Yeah,
it does, but it should.
Sure. Well, I've always wondered too. You were talking about Paul's list of things here. I've always wondered if this was written in our time, what would those lists of things be? You know, all of these things and differences and comparisons and judgments that seem to be of the world. You know, Paul's going back to the beginning. You know, think of the things that are heavenly. And so, how would we describe those things in our modern language and culture?
The things that are heavenly, or the things that are that divide us?
Both of it. You know, I mean, I think that the heavenly things have some of those same comparisons. Like, we could still say love and hope and peace and friendship. Those are the eternal things, and the heavenly things that still look the same. But those earthly things, you know, sometimes I think, what would Paul say about those things that we have that separate us now?
Well, see, when you look at the earthly things at the very beginning, he ends with 3 comparisons of earthly things. You know, these are earthly things: circumcised, uncircumcised, slave or free. I love, again, the translation, barbaric
and uncivilized. Yeah.
And so I think if you were asking me to update this, I could give you 1 or 2. Let's see. Pierced or unpierced? See, doesn't matter which side of that line you're on.
One, parent or not parent, single or divorced, or married or divorced. I think some of those things, when we start to put it into our language, it helps us understand that the goal is not to focus on how we're defined or categorized by the world. That's the piece that Paul's getting at.
I think you're absolutely right. You've been well trained.
Lutheran background.
Well, I'll admit that. Y'all have some really good theologians. You think clearly about God, and that's absolutely the truth. That's what Paul's bottom line here is that we let too much crap separate us, and that doesn't separate us from God at all. That God is in all of us, whether you're a Gamecock fan or a Clemson fan.
That would be the terms that we'd have to discuss today, right?
That would be it. Yes, that's right.
He lives in all of us. I think that's the undercurrent. You know, if we can let that be the foundation and the piece of it that fills us and that we build upon.
Well, thank you, Ashley, and thank y'all for listening. And if you were listening and this, you found any sort of inspiration from this, make a comment just so that we know that we're not just talking to each other. Okay.
It is good to talk to each other, though.
It is good, and this Zoom has went much better than I expected. So, we'll do it again next week.
We'll see what other people think.
Please. So comment if you can, please.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Bye now.